For the city of Charlestown's common council. We just have 2 items on the agenda. It's an abbreviated agenda tonight, so we don't have our usual standing business. We'll save that for our August meeting on the 5th, but we had kind of a pressing situation where both of these items needed to be addressed before that meeting because of the timeliness of it. So the first item, or I guess we should make sure we have a quorum. Let the record show that all council members are present, as well as Mayor Hodges, Clerk Treasurer Don Coomer, and both attorneys, Perry McCall and Michael Bonta. We have the memorandum of understanding with Greater Clark County School Corporation for the SRO position. Standard business, we approve this every year. There are a few small changes this year, and we obviously need to get this in place before the school year starts. The school board will be considering this at their meeting on the 23rd, which is tomorrow. So that's why we need to get everybody, assuming they approve it, it'll be in place before school starts. The changes this year include the addition of another CHPD officer to serve as SRO and the addition of a new school. So with this agreement, we will be adding an officer and we will be covering Charlestown Middle School, Jonathan Jennings Elementary School, which we already cover both of, but we'll also be adding Pleasant Ridge Elementary School to our inventory of schools. Nothing changes at the high school this year. The other addition is that Corporal Lyons, who is our existing SRO, negotiated the additional amount to reimburse the city of $3,000 for the cost of the DARE program. Previously, that's been out of pocket from our police department, and this new agreement, the school corporation will reimburse us that $3,000 for the DARE, in addition to paying half the salary of both SROs. So those are the changes. In order to get it moving forward, we just need a motion to get it on the table and we can have conversation.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Ronnie Blevins. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Shannon Elder. Comments, questions, discussion? We have our representatives from the police department here tonight. If you have questions for them.
Are you gonna vote to put it on the table? You had motion second.
We're going to motion a second, so we're talking about it. And then we'll vote.
I thought you were motion second to put it on the table. I'm sorry. I thought.
I got a motion and a second, so now we're in discussion, and then we'll have a vote to approve. Yeah.
I guess
You're
I
good.
misunderstood what you were doing.
Nope.
My
We're
fault.
good.
Okay.
We got a motion, we got a second, it's for discussion. Are there any questions or comments?
I read through it, but I want to say thank you for that. I didn't know about that 3,000, so thank you for
Yeah, that's new.
due diligence doing that. I know he does a good job in the school, but that means a lot. A little bit, every little bit helps.
It does.
Thank you for that.
Who's going into PR?
Who's going into PR, gentlemen?
Corporal Tyler Lyons, and the other Corporal Lyons. Yep.
The other Corporal Lyons.
We'll have the brothers in there.
All
And
right.
he's already been through the training for this. We've anticipated this move. So this means we will be hiring, as we're hiring, we'll be hiring for an officer. But this we accounted for this increase in our levy appeal last year. So one of the things we were able to receive in our budget for this year and last year's levy appeal was the coverage of this position.
And this is a split with the school system.
Yes, 50-50 split. If you recall last year when we negotiated this, we changed it because it had not been updated, gosh darn, how long?
Years.
I think they still had their portion was only like 12,000, so I think that was back when the base pay was around 24. And so we renegotiated with them to set it at true half cost, including benefits. So if you look at that compensation paragraph on the second page, it covers half of salary and benefits for both, plus the $3,000 reimbursement for DARE.
Exhibit B shows the pay breakdown.
And that way it goes up every time. And then there's an addendum that shows
Last page.
the last page shows the breakdown.
And every budget, and officers have an increase.
Yep.
They will reimburse us after that also.
So it takes into consideration the base pay, the rank, the longevity, for the total salary. It takes into benefits the perk, medical, uniform, insurance, and any hourly overtime. So. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. It's just a memorandum of understanding, so we'll have to have one reading, correct, attorneys? Only one reading since it's a memorandum of understanding.
Right, yeah. As long as you voted to approve it, you're good.
All right. So the next one is an ordinance, which of course requires 2 readings. Again, this is an issue that is somewhat on a time crunch. This is ordinance 2024 OR 8. It's an ordinance repealing and replacing the title of our land usage from chapter 155 of the city ordinances. Tony Jackson is here and can explain in detail. The short version is that last year in April, we officially became a MS4 community. That's municipal separate storm sewer system. Is that 4 S's? Mainly meaning that the Indiana Department of Environmental Management now requires us to take certain steps to keep our stormwater runoff out of our sewer system. This impacts drainage areas, developments, all those types of issues. There are certain steps we have to take that are mandated by the state, and one of those is passing this ordinance which establishes the Department of Stormwater Management. So Tony, what would you?
Yeah, what it is like she said, it's a state requirement. We have certain criteria that we have to meet in a certain timeline, and this is one of the main crux to that. So, once if you guys pass this, then we will actually start at that time, doing all the reviews for the stormwater drainage, for all new developments, issues throughout the city. Luckily, like she said, we foreseen this, so I went out and got my MS4 coordinator certifications, and Tubby's got the inspector certifications for it too, so that way the department's all set. Now we're just down to the administrative part, and that's where we're at tonight. We've actually got 2 big projects that are actually on standby. That's why this needs to be heard tonight. They were actually on standby because we reviewed their plans, their stormwater plans, and but we can't approve them until this is approved. That's just by state code. The county, we've been working great with the county, Tammy and them over there with it. So like I said, this is another one of those unfunded mandates. Luckily, the building department is able to pay for this. We've been working with Hannah Wagon and Klein to get it all set up, and once it's set up, then we can run it. So we're doing pretty good with that. Like I said, it could be a little complicated. This is any typical I didn't think it's going to be, but we're all ready for it, and this is the first step that we need to do to start it.
So this affects residential development, it affects industrial development, and that's the impact here is that, if you recall the U.S. Capitol buildings that you approved the abatements for, their closing on their land out there at Shadow Lake is kind of contingent upon all these pieces falling into place, and this is one of those pieces. That's why we decided to call a special meeting, because Tony cannot actually move forward with the engineers to approve their stormwater plans until this is done, because this establishes that department. It also begins the step towards looking at fees for impermeable surfaces for these large buildings, which will become critical as River Ridge develops and some of these other large places develop.
And those fees, just to put a little short on that, those fees are something that is required by the state. It's just we have to do our due diligence to figure out what that fee is going to be.
It's sort of like having another utility. It's a
Right.
department within the city. It's sort of like having to manage another utility in that our trash department, our sanitation department, and our sewer department don't receive property tax funds. They are funded only through user fees. This is kind of that same thing. What this also allows us to do is start the process towards determining what fees would pay for this utility, this department, this work. You gotta have a way to pay for the engineering fees and review on these. It's not something that's just gonna sit and be, the state gives no funding for this at all. They just tell you have to do it. So it's a step towards creating that, and that will you will approve that as well. This is not something that will be done without your approval. As Baker Tilly works on that model and what that looks like, that will come back before you on any kind of fee structure for you to consider and approve.
Yeah, to give you a good example, when I first met with Hannah Wagon and Klein, they asked me what was our review fees. I said $250. They laughed so hard. They said, that won't even cover an hour.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we've been doing reviews on this, it has to be done by an engineer. So they come up with working with Baker Tilly, they come up with a scale where it's dependent on how big the property is, how much time, of course, they think it's gonna take. So we don't have that. All we got now is, hey, you're gonna pay $250 for a $5,000 review.
So this helps us not lose money. It also puts a department into place where eventually, when we have issues like what we're experiencing with Hidden River Valley,
Right.
we will have a fund that exists to
Instead of
cover those
coming to you guys.
expenses without having to draw upon other funds or use the general fund to do it.
Is this something that the city chose to be part of in
No.
this board?
No,
No, this is a mandate from the state.
Is it
We
based on population? Is it
Yes.
based on?
generally 10,000 is the cutoff. Sometimes when a community is rapidly growing or they're in an area that is experiencing significant change, they will go ahead and make that designation. And we knew this was coming.
Oh.
I mean, this was something that we anticipated. I anticipated that, I was prepared for when we hit 10,000. It was a little bit of a surprise that it hit before we hit 10,000 population. But our last census showed us at 8,900, and the way that we're growing, we'll be there before too long. I think they were looking at everything, and they just kind of went ahead and gave us. We were not the only community in Indiana that received this
there were
notice.
14 under this last pass, when we got put into it, there was 14 other cities, we were under 15.
The good news is that the county does have a very robust system that already manages a lot of this, and we have very good working relationships with, also with the Clark County Soil and Water Conservation Group and some of these other groups that watch these things. This is important for any kind of, runoff at a construction site, but even outside of construction sites. It's a way, it's designed to help preserve our waterways, our natural resources. It's important for agricultural areas that outlie the city and those that are in the city. So it's, like I said, we knew it was coming, it's just a matter of implementing it. But the state, we did receive the letter, they gave us a year, basically,
Right, it's a year.
to get prepared. So as soon as we got the letter, I gave it to Tony. He immediately went and started the training that he needed so that he could become coordinator. And then we suckered Tubby into becoming our inspector, and we sent him to the training as well.
They said by 2030, almost all of Indiana will be an MS4. It's just going to how they incorporate it, like all the smaller communities up north, they'll be together as one, but because they don't have the financial ability to hire engineers and all that stuff, so they go together as one. One problem with that is, anytime you have a local agreement like that, you have issues. We're pretty fortunate.
Other questions? It's not the most fun things that we get to do, but it's one of those things we have to address. So.
Are these fees only attached to somebody trying to build, or is it?
So for now, the review fees are
Review
attached,
fees are
so they're
attached.
paying in the same way that they pay permit fees for other things. They're just revising the structure of those review fees, because we have to pay our engineers to review them. And so basically, when you're building here, you're gonna pay those fees, rather than passing that off on people who aren't building here. What this does is it establishes the code for penalties as well. So the penalties that are outlined in here, that applies to anybody who's breaking those rules.
But I didn't see anything here about eventually residents will be paying fees on this.
There's a likelihood, not in this version, that's why I said any additional fee revenue would come back before this council for that decision. Most communities that are MS4 communities that have the drainage department do charge a small fee, because it's like having another utility. Every time anybody pays anything, every time anybody covers up grass, you're creating a drainage situation. What right now this does is it sets in place the review process where our engineers and Tony and Tubby is the inspector, will go out and make sure that as they're building, they are managing the runoff the way they're supposed to. They're providing a place for that water to go. And that they're doing it to meet IDEM's standards. That's all this does right now. And then it says, if you don't do that, these are the financial penalties you will pay. Most communities find that that's not enough revenue to operate the department as you grow. So most apply a small rate, just like you would any other rate for any other utility, that is user-based. It's usually smaller on the a single-family residence. Then what it does is it allows you to create a structure so that when you have a company coming in, for instance, that's making 800 parking spaces, and they're paving that much of a previously permeable space, they're going to pay a slightly higher amount or a much larger amount depending on the space, because again, it's trying to build that so that when you have issues, this requirement in the same way, think of it this way. In the same way that we have sewer lines running throughout the city, we're gonna have to have stormwater lines running throughout the city because they cannot commingle. You cannot have stormwater running into a sewer line. We currently do not have an accurate map of our existing stormwater lines. That's something that we need to hire and get, is someone to go out and do mapping of our existing stormwater lines. We know that because there have been times where either Indiana American Water needed to replace a water line, or we've had to repair a sewer line, where when they have excavated that line, they have encountered a stormwater line that they didn't know existed. And that's just the growing pains of the city, because these might be stormwater lines that were put in 1952, and let's face it, technology has increased substantially since then, so there might not have been an appropriate map for that put into place at that time. And what this mandate is saying is we have to know where those things are, we have to start marking them, and we have to identify them. And so that's gonna cost something. If we don't put in eventually some level of a fee structure to fund this utility, we'll be paying for it out of the general fund.
And then, when you talk about those fees, those are pretty much mandated by the state too. They're like, hey, you're gonna have to do something. Because the only other option would be the board would have to try to budget somehow to pay for that.
So you're saying that the state's gonna come in and say, you need to put a tax on your citizens for a drainage fee?
They're gonna ask us how you're gonna pay for it.
Right, but you're saying the state, you just said the state's gonna mandate.
They mandate that you have some kind of fee structure.
Right.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So when-
It's the same way as a sewer, that the
Right.
sewer, the state statute for sewer says you have to charge a rate. It literally says you have to charge a rate that funds your utility. And if you don't, and it starts to decline, then you're in trouble. But the state statute says the same thing about MS4. You have to provide funding
It's-
for it from some source.
it's like now,
But that doesn't mean the citizens, that could mean any business that comes in, or you could get fees off that.
We will probably let our financial advisors answer
Yeah.
that question.
it's like, right now, we probably put out about $40,000 out of the building department just for this program. We're looking at.
With no revenue coming in to cover it.
Right, no revenues, we're looking at.
And what it's come from are fees that you've charged for other things
Right,
that
for
normally
buildings.
would go for,
I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying, I see, and maybe I'm totally wrong, but I see this as being another fee that we're gonna put on top of our citizens, on top of the CCD we just put in. It's just.
I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you and tell you that it
No,
won't, that
I
it won't be
understand
recommended
what
that
you're
that be the option.
Yeah.
The problem is that we don't have a choice. This isn't something that Tony or me or anybody dreamed up and said, hey, I got an idea, let's charge people more money. None of us ever wanna do that.
Yeah,
We're all residents too, we don't wanna pay more money, that's
Well, not that
crazy.
we're wanting to do that, as far as, and I know, I kind of see what you're getting at with the single-family dwelling and stuff
I get
like
it.
that, so whenever you bring the fee structure to us, number one, my question is, when will that happen?
Baker Tilly's working on it now, I don't have an ETA of when they'll
And
have
number
it.
two, do we set that fee structure, or does the state set that fee structure?
They don't set the
They don't
specific
say.
fee
So
structure.
they
All
don't
they
set
tell
the
you is
number.
you have to provide enough
Right.
money to fund,
That's
Your-
So they don't
your
look
program.
at, the state don't look at us in there.
no. They're not gonna sit there and say, you
We're
have to
gonna charge
charge,
this.
you gotta
No.
charge $1.63 a month. They don't
Okay.
go to that level. That's something that our financial advisors look at. What they're gonna do is they're gonna take how much it's reasonable expected that we would have to pay
Yeah,
out. And they're gonna set a structure that just basically covers that plus a little bit extra to go into a fund,
Right.
so that when we have something we have to repair, we have money to repair it.
right.
Right, because when a line collapses, think of it this way, if we've had to install stormwater lines and a line collapses, somebody has to repair that. The sewer department can't pay for it, it's not a sewer utility. The sanitation department can't pay for it, it's not a sanitation utility. Right now, if that happens, we have to dip into either our capital trust fund or our capital improvement plan fund through our economic income tax. Or Tony has to foot it out of his safety fund because it is a public safety health issue. That depletes his fund that he's able to use for other issues of,
Yeah, I'm not asking that because I don't
Right.
think we should have fees for certain things, or certain people, but I just wanna know where.
that's why when I got the letter about this, I was like, oh, here we go. I mean, I knew it was coming, but I was hoping we would have more time.
Yeah, I look at the fee towards that single family dwelling, you know, that
Yeah.
one house, that one family, Yeah, I mean, when you guys like coming here and building a 300 home neighborhood,
They're gonna pay
that's
more.
gonna be a little bit different.
Oh, yeah.
They're gonna pay more for the development side, but there's the maintenance side of it too.
So
They're gonna pay to put the system, for, you know, they have to put the system in, they're gonna pay for that, they're gonna pay the fees for the assessment of all of that. But 50 years from now, when they're gone and people are still living there and these lines start collapsing, at some point, we're built out, somebody's gotta pay for the maintenance of it, that's just part of it.
Yeah,
One of the most popular calls I get is, I've got a drainage ditch behind my house and it's filled up and it needs to be cleaned out. Who does that? Who, you know,
Two things, I guess the only two ways I think of would be if we had the fees, or if you budget it. But if you budget it, then you're eating into your other programs, which you're gonna lose.
then you're eating into your general fund for all your other departments.
And the only other thing I got to ask, and this mainly for Tony, is down here on, I don't even know what page it is, but, there you go. Talks about the fees for people that aren't following through.
Oh, the fine?
Yes.
Yeah.
So who regulates that? Is that you and Tubby, or?
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
yeah, Tubby goes out every day. If you see the black silk fence and stuff, Tubby goes around every day, make sure that any construction sites have the proper silk fence. They have, the concrete washouts and stuff, make sure they're not getting dirt on the roads and stuff like that. We also have to include, Sean Palmer does the street sweeping.
Mhm.
We have to list that in a list, because what they do is, once a year, they'll come through and look at everything we got. You know, make sure everything's going fine, and if we pass, we're fine, if not, then they ding us on it, we have so many days to fix it.
Yep.
It's, like I said, it's a little bit complicated, it's kind of a little crazy.
And I
It's
get what
another
you're saying. I
government
get what you're saying
regulation.
about fees and stuff, and my thing is, if they're doing the right thing, then, I mean, we don't wanna go out and charge people a bunch of money to do something with drainage, but if they're not doing the right thing, then one causing us a problem.
Well, there's a
Well,
difference,
these
there's a difference
penalties
between
are a
the
big
fine, there's a difference between a fine and a fee though,
I
right?
understand the fee, but these penalties are a big deal as well, so I just wanna make
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, yeah, those
we're
are,
following
we don't
up
just
with
go
that.
out.
We don't just go out and immediately
Yeah.
fine people.
No, I understand.
We're building,
I get that.
so.
Yeah, we have a soft approach first. Usually it's a, hey,
Yeah.
you need a silt fence here, or, hey, you can't dump this stuff in the back of this, you know, you can't throw your lawn clippings into this drainage ditch because it's affecting everybody downstream. You can't do that. Don't do that again, please, thank
Right,
you.
I'm just saying, I don't wanna
And
go out
then
and
if they keep
charge,
going,
I don't wanna go out and charge you so much money for a fee to do the right thing, but I'm not turning around and charging people that aren't doing the right thing over and
Absolutely.
over.
Oh,
Yep.
no,
Because it all goes into the same bucket overall.
that's why we got Tubby
And those
trained
are
up.
the people causing this issue, that's the only thing I was asking about.
Yeah, we don't, the person out in the, like the normal person, like putting grass clippings and stuff, it's like anything, hey, don't do that, then we explain to it. Education is a major part of one of the 5 things you're supposed to do in
Right.
this. So like community days, and what's up a tent, have education and explain to people why you can't put stuff, you know, why you keep your drains clean and stuff like that. And for the most part, I don't foresee very many problems. It's just some of the builder sites where you'll get 4 builders in one subdivision being built out,
Yep.
and they don't talk to each other, or things, so we handle that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good, any other questions?
Michael, do you see anything on this, that's gonna bind us to adding a fee later on, in case we decide not to?
Nothing that I've read, at least not in my reading, and Barry could potentially weigh in on that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Moving in.
Wade?
Oh, yeah, this is not unusual in a lot of municipalities that have this type of legislation put in place. I know that the city of Jeffersonville had done this at some point in the past and was mandated to do it, just because the infiltration of rainwater and other, so it's not unusual for this type of legislation. Surprisingly, Charlestown doesn't have it in place at this point, to the extent. As far as the fees that are mandated, those are subject to the local municipalities' decision to impose certain fees in certain instances and how they want to enforce that. So I don't see a problem with getting this in place at this particular point to address the mandate and then address the fees later on.
Okay, I just didn't want this to lock us into.
No, it does.
No, like I said, there's 2, you know, I know of 2 ways you can do it. One is you do it in your budget, you know.
Not saying that we don't add it, I'm just saying, I don't want this to lock us in.
Oh, I understand. I
And
understand.
then
Certain number.
3 months down the road, we go, well, shoot, we didn't know that, now we gotta pay this. I just don't,
No.
so I just don't want this to lock us in.
Yeah, I think
No.
the funding is up, like Barry said, to your discretion later.
Okay, all right.
like I said, all this is establishing the department. It says, yes, we have a stormwater department. Here are the penalties for not complying with the ordinance. That's all this does.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Of course, you don't want the fallout from the.
Yeah,
up
I mean,
north to deal, would have to deal with their issues.
The alternative is, if we, if we don't do this, then IDEM comes down and starts slapping us with penalties and fines, and then how are we gonna pay those penalties and
I think it's
fines?
about not doing it, I think it's about not locking in a fee later, that's something we wanna discuss later too.
Never said this is the wrong
Yeah,
thing.
I don't mind this, it's just a fee question.
And I didn't mean to insinuate that we have to do those fees, it's just, what I meant to say was you have to fund it somehow.
Yeah. Not,
I just wanna be able to
it's not
discuss
me.
that.
We've tried everything to keep them going, you know, I've been pretty fortunate that the building department has had enough money here lately to do this stuff, while having come to the board and say, hey, we need $70,000. So we've been pretty fortunate that way.
I don't want any department to be out without money by any means, but, yeah, I understand. And thank you both for that.
And we wouldn't, and what we're doing now, we're working with, Baker Tilly, as HWC is working with them, set the master plan that'll point out different things that need to be done. So if we do have to do fees or we have to budget it some way, it won't be over budgeting it. So we'll have a good plan of where we're gonna go with it.
I don't like to like seem like I'm against moving the city forward, but my district is the old part of the town. And I have the people that are the oldest citizens in the area, and most of them are retired, and they're not going out looking for more money to come in and pay for these extra fees. So I'm not saying that I'm
Oh,
against
I-
it, not at all. I understand these things have to happen, but I'm just trying to think about the citizens in my area that are on fixed incomes, and, you know, you nickel and dime them to death, and the next thing you know, you don't have money to buy bread. So that's the only reason I'm going there.
Any other questions? All in favor, say, oh, we don't have a motion. We need a motion. We haven't even put it on the table. We need a motion. All right, I got a motion from Shannon,
I'll second.
second from Chuck. Now, one final call for any final questions. Just because I like to be thorough. Good deal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing as how it is timely that we get this done in order to move, US Capital through their actual development plan, I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules and have this on its second reading tonight.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion from Chuck,
I'll second.
second by Shannon. Any questions about the suspension of the rules? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Since that's unanimous, we'll call for the second and final reading of ordinance 2024 OR 8, establishing the stormwater drainage department, or Department of Stormwater Management. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion from Shannon. Second?
Second.
Second by Ronnie. Any other last questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you all. So we'll get in touch with US Capital and let them know to pass this tonight. That's really all we had on the agenda for the special meeting. I appreciate you all taking the time to come out tonight for this, to move these two items forward. We will have a packed agenda, just so you know, for the August meeting. There are several items that are coming up. Brian, we're meeting Thursday, kind of cover that with you as president. Thursday at 9, yeah. To kind of cover some of those. If anybody in the interim has any questions as things come out, please just reach out to me, let me know, I'll chat with you. But there will be a pretty full agenda for that meeting. Just for your information, just because I think it's worth noting and knowing, one of the things that we might be doing at that meeting is, I was recently contacted by Donna Reed, who is a council person in Jeffersonville, and works at IUS, and the new Chancellor Debbie Ford at IUS, both of them reached out to me. They got wind that we have had our legislative youth advisor program since 2020, and Jeffersonville is looking to add that program. So they asked me how ours went, how it operated. I shared that, and then Chancellor Ford came back and sent me a letter offering both our previous advisor Ethan Biggs and our current advisor Mercedes Marino a scholarship at IUS.
Great.
So, yeah, so it's a small scholarship, but it renews every year that they want to be in school. And so she's thinking about, I'm trying to get them to find out if they're coming. I have not told them yet, but I just made it public, so there it is. And she wants to come and maybe present them at a meeting, so I've proposed that meeting. If not, then we'll do it in September, but,
Also,
I thought that was kind of cool. Good things, people looking at Charlestown to be example, I think that's cool. All right, if there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Where's your email?
We'll go with the first from Chuck and a second from Bo then on that, and all in favor say aye.
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 All right, we're.